The committee said there was going to be a huge national security problem. He called me and said, "Do you see any security threat?" I said, "No, this is all rubbish. It's all rubbish because you don't invite CIA. They usually come uninvited."
Our guest today is Dr. Asanga Abeyagoonasekera, National Security Strategist, Founding Director of the Institute of National Security Studies, former Director of the Lakshman Kadirgamar Institute, an advisor to the IMF, and a man that some believe is a patriot, while others believe is an asset of the CIA.
Had President Trump's statement saying that don't give it on lease, don't lease out Diego Garcia to Mauritius, because the moment you do that, the Chinese will come in. A few days after he said it, the Chinese ship was there. He said that we are against because of geopolitics. And I said, oh, hold on, there's something wrong with that. There is something wrong with the data point because trade unions don't talk geopolitics.
Yeah.
That means somebody's paid them. They paid them, of course. Is the 2 weeks before the Sunday bombing, we had the Secretary of Defense of India on a very high-level meeting. So we spoke about fishing boats, we spoke about other ordinary, but nothing on this. What I'm saying is that someone took it off the agenda. So clearly that was not on the agenda.
Asanga, welcome to the podcast. Welcome from the island.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So, as the audience knows, you're a preeminent geopolitical expert with a lot of expertise in South Asia. So, given everything going on in the world right now, it's a good time to have you. I want to start by asking you about the U.S. submarine. That's a big topic of discussion here that went on off EEZ. So, there's a lot of discussion about this in Sri Lanka. A lot of geopolitical awareness has now come here. And then we often think about this as Sri Lanka as a neutral nation. And we really run with that. And I understand how neutrality can benefit us, of course. When I think about neutrality, though, do you think neutrality makes sense if we actually have very little leverage when we go into the geopolitical game? Correct me if I'm wrong, but without leverage, neutrality doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole understanding is that it's all about the leverage that we possess. So where do you see this going for Sri Lanka in terms of our foreign policy? Should we take this neutral stance, or should we focus more on strategic autonomy and build up points of leverage?
Yeah, so there are several questions in
there.
Run with it.
Run with it all.
So first is the submarine that you mentioned, right? So now the attack to the Iranian ship, Iris Dina. So basically, the ship came for a military drill. According to Kanwal Sibal, that's the Foreign Secretary of India, she says clearly that the ship was unarmed. When you come for a military drill, sometimes they are unarmed, and it was unarmed. But also the party that took the ship down also was invited. The United States was also invited, but they didn't participate at the last minute. So then when they were in the Sri Lankan EEZ, this attack happened. So first thing is that to say that they didn't know about it, that the information was not available, is a bit of, so I think you can't, hard to believe that.
You doubt it, yeah.
Because it came for a military drill, it was unarmed. And then the party that basically the US also probably had the information, I believe, according to Kanwal Sibal. So the Indian version of that is obviously, what they are trying to articulate, their position, I believe that's correct.
Right.
Then it comes to the Sri Lankan situation where it was shut down inside the EEZ. So as a nation that follows the law of the sea, UN law of the sea, so we are under the Article 58 clearly mentions that if you're going to put down a ship or if that military action is going to take place inside the EEZ, the party has to inform the coastal state, that is Sri Lanka. Some sort of pre-information operations should come before you attack. So I think that's a breach of Article 58, clearly.
Okay.
And but U.S. is not a signatory
Right.
to UNCLOS, Law of the Sea. But they do mention that they respect the law of the sea, of course, and the norms and the values of, so that's something that we have to understand. That's that has happened. So legally as well as the position, but the government's position, as well as the Indian government, has taken the right position, because they said that we work according to the norms and values of the international laws. So we took the Geneva Convention to protect the people. Oh, that's what we did. We saved some lives. That's amazing. I mean, it's heroic, saving lives, while many died. Then we rescued 200 others from another ship, from Trincomalee. Again, that's also heroic, because you're saving lives under the Geneva Convention. So India also took that position, basically saying that we will act according to the norms and values of the whatever is there. I think that's what both the countries, as well as the many countries who are not part of this war, who are victims now of the geopolitics of Middle East, would need to sort of get into that same sort of, I would say, direction. Because what can we do? I mean, as a nation, we don't have the strength to advocate in position. Tell them what to do. But we would know what our position is. Our position is according to the norms and values of the world, that we will follow that, the rules-based order, and all that. But there is a problem where the West, who has been speaking about it, the United States including, which I have captured in my book in many interviews, they ask me the question that, so where are you talking about norms, values, rules-based order? Do you have it from where you come? Which means, I was writing this book when I was in Washington. So
Right.
Vietnam, I got the same question. In Cambodia, Thailand, democracy index, all that. So
Right.
It's a time of trust deficit in
Right.
the world. Then I come to your other part of the question, the neutrality.
Sure.
All the countries, if you look at the Southeast Asia and South Asia, which I have captured in my book, they believe in a neutrality. They want a balanced foreign policy. They use this balance or neutrality in different words. So in Vietnam, they call it the bamboo diplomacy.
Right.
So the bamboo is basically you have strong roots, and you have, when the wind comes, you sort of swing to whatever side, but which means that they will bring the benefit to the country. It's kind of a multi-aligned balance. They use the words, it's kind of a mix of it.
And I assume this is part of their grand strategy.
It's coming from Ho Chi Minh,
Right.
this bamboo diplomacy. Then Thailand also has the same. That's very interesting. So I did the Thai interviews, and we also have bamboo diplomacy. I asked, which one is the first one?
Right.
Right? The Thai or the Vietnamese. But the Thai means the same thing. Roots are strong, principles, values, but then we get the benefits from whatever. If you look at Thai has signed with the United States military, they have a military presence there. They have close U.S. relationships, as well as many Southeast Asia, as well as the other country. But the thing is that they have benefited from China also.
Right.
When you look at the trade volumes as well as others. So what Sri Lanka, I think, has not got is that, like the foreign policy, we say balance. Now, basically, if you take the previous government, which is if you take the Sirisena's government,
Right.
starting from that, he used the term balanced and Asia-centric. It has, when you try to say, if you ask him to explain it, you find it difficult.
Yeah.
He will find it difficult also.
Yeah.
What does Asia-centric and then balance mean? Then you have Gotabeyas. Then he used another term. It's not multi-aligned.
China primary, US secondary.
No. He used a geographic term actually in one of his speeches. It's not balance, but it's more of it's like equidistance. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So he says equidistance, then I was wondering like what he was talking about. I mean, equidistance means it's a geographic context. I mean, you are equally distanced, kind of. But you,
So by that logic, then he'd be advocating for very close relations with India due to proximity.
and when he said equidistant, but his foreign secretary was saying something else. So that's why I captured in my last book.
Right.
He said India first in his first interview. We have India first foreign policy. Then a week after that, he corrected, saying, "No, it's not India first. We have Sri Lanka first." He was on live TV. So when I captured that, but what's interesting is that all these statements, because Sri Lanka does not have a clear foreign policy written, as well as articulated by our leaders, by regime to regime, taking it forward. Now, Vietnam has one policy, which is bamboo diplomacy, carried from years.
But they are a one-party state.
They're one party, but Thailand is not.
Right.
But Thailand also has the same. I mean, if you look at Singapore, India is one of the best examples. They use multi-align. They use the non-aligned principles as their base. Of course, we are non-aligned nations during the Cold War. So Sri Lanka also used non-aligned, like Mahinda Rajapaksa used the term non-aligned. And also our present president also. So the balance, how you're going to balance, we are not clear. None of, so I think the reason we don't write it is also because once you write it, you don't have the flexibility to change. I think that's one of the weaknesses that we have. So you need to write this down. So you need to have a written proper foreign policy. That's one of the biggest weaknesses. And now see, another issue is that we are very passive. If you look at from 1970s, only time I see, if you read the foreign policy of Sri Lanka from 1940s to now, you had a really active foreign policy is during Sirimavo Bandaranaike,
Right.
I believe. Now, if you look at this submarine case, also you can apply one of her ideas in 1973,
Zone
Indian
of
Ocean
Peace.
Zone for Peace, that came from her. But it came from a team, a really good team,
Right.
who was working. Shirley Amarasinghe, Kumar Chetty, who passed away 2 years ago, is one of the brilliant minds. I personally met him and also sort of, try to understand the UNCLOS, the seabed mining issues and how, because he was the chair of the Seabed Mining Authority also,
Okay.
Shirley Amarasinghe. Then he was also chair of the UNCLOS, starting from 1967. I think he was also chair for Israeli, the
Relations.
rights, the atrocities as well as the issues.
okay.
I think he was the chair. I'm not sure, but I think he was, because he was chair for several. And Shirley Amarasinghe's contribution is immense. So she had a very good team.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. The team managed to come up with these amazing ideas. Of course, she was visionary too. So I have heard about her in my travels. I've traveled for all these work for the last 10 years that I've been doing several books. This is my 5th book. So I've traveled to more than about, I would say, 47 countries. What I hear is about her.
Right.
If I go to, like I was in Havana, in Cuba, so it's about Sirimavo.
Okay.
That's
That's interesting.
The taxi driver knew who Sirimavo was. That's amazing. So
In Cuba?
In Cuba. She knew, so that's the thing, he said Ceylon. He didn't know West Carolina, but he spoke about Ceylon. But then only one person they knew, that's Sirimavo.
Okay.
In Slovenia, there's only one person they know, that is Sirimavo, because of the relationship with Marshal Tito.
Right.
And so I was in Krang, was going to Bled for a conference, and this is in Slovenia. And in Krang, they showed me where she dined with Marshal Tito. And so they have a lot of respect for her, because I think there was a male-dominated world at that time, and she was the only
The first also, yeah.
first female prime minister, and she was carrying herself really well.
Right.
And then comes, of course, so I think the foreign policy of her was really good. I mean, I would say very active, not passive, playing a role with the big powers. I mean, Indian Ocean Zone for Peace means that, we want to create a zone of peace. You can have the Cold War, but don't militarize the ocean. our ocean. So,
But was that effective, Asanga? Because I remember there was a time when, the Americans, the British ganged up on India, to say the least, and then the Soviets kind of came to their aid by parking submarines here in the so-called zone of peace, as a intimidatory, and it worked. So what I was trying to get to was also, even the zone of peace you're talking about, how can we actually enforce this nice idea if we don't have any sort of hard power, if we don't have the leverage to do so?
yeah, so that's where basically the geopolitics and the really school come in, where even Nehru understood that when you had the surprise attack, right? Although you are non-aligned, you have done strike deals with Bandung and all that, then you have a surprise attack. So, in terms of geopolitics, my subject. So, I mean, you are sort of, if you look at in the really school, you are prone to expect this sort of hard power. The hard power. Now you can see the expansions that's happening. If you look at the NATO's expansion, Sweden coming in, or if you look at Greenland's, United States talking about Greenland president, then about what's happening in Iran. So that's hard power. So it's kind of, if you look at it from Thucydides' trap to natural, that you have, when you have a existing power and you have a rising power, it is natural that you have these tendencies. So which is, some say this war was created to sort of put some limits to China's growth, the tremendous growth, which has been captured in these trade volumes and, massive. Because China depends heavily, 80% of oil as well as all that, its energy comes from Iran. Kind of an indirect sort of an attempt to slow down.
I believe 80% passes through this, 80% their oil, as you capture in the book.
Yeah, so if you look at the situations, even in Diego Garcia 2 weeks ago, if you look at President Trump's statement saying that don't give it on lease, this is, and it's a direct quote from his ex, written to Prime Minister of England, of Britain, saying that don't lease out Diego Garcia to Mauritius, because moment you do that, the Chinese will come in.
Right. And they have a lot of influence over Mauritius.
Yeah, a few days after he said it, the Chinese ship was there.
Right.
So we do what we do in our research is that our researchers, they keep track of what's going on in the region quite well. When there is Chinese research vessels, there was a research vessel very close. I even posted a picture of that. There is no guarantee that the Chinese, if they want to open up as a multi sort of base operation, Mauritius can do that.
Right.
That's what Trump is talking about, like Djibouti.
Right.
If that happens, of course, there is going to be, balance of power and be a tilt.
Right. And I'm just going to digress a little bit. What's your take on why that is happening? Why are the British essentially allowing this to happen? Isn't the UK essentially a vassal state of the US? How could they? Why is this fight even taking place?
There is a significant amount of fear. I can use that word fear because certain countries have not given statements about this war. They have been still silent. Oppositions and other parties are saying, why aren't they talking directly? What's going on?
Right.
There is fear because it's a very reactive, as well as the foreign policy of President Trump is quite difficult to understand, because even in Washington, we try to articulate a position like it was on Greenland, right? Then it moved to Iran now. So there are multiple viewpoints, and then there is defense documents which discuss about, such as the National Security Strategy of the United States, which came out like a few months ago. The hemispheric defense, they only focus on the Western Hemisphere. But Iran is not in the Western Hemisphere. It's outside the hemisphere. Okay, we understand on securing the hemisphere because of China. They mentioned about the China's aggression. They're coming from the Arctic. Okay, the coming from the Arctic I've captured actually, this came from 1944. It's not a recent phenomenon. Nicholas Spikeman actually makes that assessment, a geopolitical assessment, because the closest route could be from Arctic.
Right. Okay,
And
interesting.
I worked on his Asiatic Mediterranean, which is a triangular. It's a space in ASEAN, near the ASEAN, the South China Sea, as well as the area of the heart of the Indo-Pacific. That's where I worked on this particular book. But there's another Mediterranean. He speaks about the Arctic Mediterranean, so which is a danger zone, closest route. I think that came into the calculation after the Ukraine invasion.
Right.
And because Ukrainian, some of the data points I think came from them, because of course Russia has become one of the aggressors, and so they would. That's the reason I think the Greenland was discussed. But now they're out of the hemisphere. Now they are basically in Iran. So what I've tried to say is that no one could understand the sort of the quick reactions of President Trump's decisions. Even I don't think the strategic community is trying to find it difficult to understand what's going to happen next. That's why the length, duration of the war, we're not clear when it's going to pull out, or when is that going to ever happen, or is it going to be kind of a prolonged conflict?
Right.
So these are the dangers also that we see as people who read geopolitics from different countries. And there's a fear in most of my interviews that I understood was that the fear of the hegemonic behavior of these big powers, not only the US, but also India, China. So you look at the expansions going on. Then you have areas such as the trust deficit. When you look at how much do we trust these countries, can we trust on, working closer, because they have created a lot of chaos. I mean, I give you one reference point. The Director General of the Institute, the Royal Institute, I have interviewed him. So when he began the interview, he says, look, you have to understand the historical perspective of Cambodia. And so first you have to understand the geopolitical, before you understand the geopolitical context. Right. The historical context is that US carpet bombed and killed 1 million Cambodians. So he directly even mentions the name Henry Kissinger was directly involved. And this was the time during his death and all that. So, but they were concerned of that. Then they were mentioning about, look, then another 2 million was killed by the Cameroon. So that's 3 million totally. And so we have become victims. We are always victims. And now we have a lot of sanctions in our country. Then the Chinese have come and built a port called the Riam port, just like Hambantota here. Now they're saying that we are militarizing, we are given to the Chinese and all that. But our constitution does not allow to give to other powers.
Right.
But we are close to China.
Yeah.
So they've kind of drifted, as well as their Hun Sen as well as Hun Manet, as sort of, they call it the ironclad brothers.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So that's the Cambodian story. But what they're trying to say is that then they have a reference to U.S. Secretary of Defense. So he comes to Cambodia, Austin, during Biden's time. So I asked about that visit, and he said Austin came and went, but we had sanctions. We thought it would be reduced, but then they targeted an individual who was very close to the regime.
Interesting.
And he was a businessman and all that, so they were very disappointed about that.
Okay.
So you see, it's not nothing. They're not. Those things are not resolving in these countries. There's a lot of tension in it, and there's a huge trust deficit. So China is very easily filling that gap.
Right.
So what happens is that they come in with soft diplomacy, infrastructure, as well as cultural diplomacy. So they don't talk about any. That's why there's no I think it was one of the former presidents who clearly mentioned, US president, that China has not got into any entanglements for many years. And that's an advantage of China, because people, I think in Southeast Asia, they're seen as a much more matured sort of foreign policy, I would say, ones who are handling the foreign policy.
Even today, considering everything with the
So
South China Sea?
if you look at my interviews, most of them, I mean, South China Sea, of course, Philippines I have not covered in, but Philippines in the later stage, I went to Philippines like a few months ago. They do have a concern, but even for the uprisings that right now, I mean, there's this people's uprising against 20 billion missing, the flood. So there's something called the flood projects. So the 20 billion, there's a huge corruption record. So Marcos has appointed his own people to, investigate and quickly arrest them. Then there was another geopolitical parties that the Chinese were behind this whole operation because they want to get rid of Marcos.
Right.
They were funding the protesters, but that didn't have any, I mean, when I went there and did some interviews, we tried to collect some data, I don't think that was the case. So there was no Chinese hand in that sort of thing, but few were arrested.
Okay.
Were connected to the regime.
A lot of Western media, Asanga, shows that in the Philippines, one of the biggest political divides is the China-US issue that a lot of people on the ground
Yeah, because they are directly victims of this the South China Sea issue, as well as the fishermen's issue, as well as that's a continuous thing that happens every month, and that's but China, I mean, now here's the interesting part. So since they are now out of the Western Hemisphere, the US, there is no guarantee that China will not, consider of taking Taiwan. I mean, if you look at some of the research reports in the US say it is 2027 that the whole Taiwan invasion will happen, 100 years of the PLA. So one of the British security analysts that I met, he said, no, what happened was Iran gave sort of a comfort to the Chinese to take over faster. So there are two versions of this Taiwan thing. One is that some Chinese scholars I met saying we are taking too long. The more you wait, more you lose the game. So I think Trump has also got this same sort of analogy then we need to strike, and we need to strike because we need to control the situation.
Are they trying to shrink the window of opportunity for the Chinese to take Taiwan? Is that
now it has become, they have not shrunk the opportunity, but they have sort of created that momentum much more because they have aggravated it.
Right.
So it would be so that's where the problem is. So you'd have to understand the entire the map. It's not just the one region, but geopolitics affects multiple regions. And you see, in the past, that's why I mentioned I start from the relationship we had, the historical relationship. The Sri Lanka's only military victory we had outside was in a port in Myanmar, Kasumi, during our king's time in the 12th century. So, and this is called the Devanagala inscription. We have inscription written in the ancient past. So there was external interventions back then. I mean, Sri Lanka has shown their force basically by naval power in Myanmar. And we have dictated the trading rules.
Why would we intervene at that time?
So there was a disruption to our trade. So we were trading ivory and other stuff, and so there was a disruption, and so our naval fleet had a battle in a port called Kasumi.
Interesting.
And that's the only recorded sort of the naval battle and the victory we had. So it was a power, although we were middle and small power. Then I think the cultural, if you look at the context, the civilizational, Sri Lanka is a civilizational power, just like Cambodia was a civilizational power. But all of these civilizational powers, if you look at it, they have become poorer, right? I mean, in terms of economy, I mean, it's about 25% in Sri Lanka. Cambodia is about the same. So, and they have become, I mean, the grandeur of the civilization is no more. They talk about it. I mean, Angkor Wat is the size, almost close to the size of Singapore. The entire temple is like, I begin from that. And they'll say like, look, we've done this amazing. So it's the same story here. That civilization. But the two big powers are also talking. There's a competition between India and China, where India speaks about Bharat, the rise of Bharat, and Dr. Jayashankar's book, clearly. Then you have President Xi Jinping's version of a shared future, as well as, referring to the Silk Road, as well as the voyages of the So that's the Chinese part of it, trying to sort of revisit the civilizational grandeur. So I think what's interesting is that one time I was in Xi'an, and so they were saying that in China, and during this research, so they were saying we are not 2,000 years old, we are much more than that, 2,500, 4,000 to 5,000 years. So we are much more. They had much more to show, and they did send me to one of those museums to see those artifacts of the past. So what they're trying to say is that we were one of the civilized, as well as one of the greatest nations that they back then. But the competition is going on. They're trying to revisit that. Now, if you look at Modi's attempt on the Ram Mandir, you see, as well as the concepts on Bharat and Sagar, Mahasagar, it's a revisit of these.
Is that part of their strategic calculus to bring about that civilizational vigor amongst the population?
Yeah. So I think their strategic calculation is that while the West has sort of eroded this ideas on rules-based order, norms and values, it's been kind of deteriorated. Even the West, it's the West who was talking about the West now. If you look at Canadian Prime Minister in Davos, so that's the West talking about the West. So when this is happening, their strategic calculation, that's why India speaks about strategic autonomy, they speak about, let's discuss about, how we could survive by our own. But India would be a bit disappointed of the submarine attack because India has partnership with Limoa and Komkasa. Those are the military agreements that they have on logistics supply. And so when you sign with, Sri Lanka has something called the Access and the Cross Exchange Agreement. So when you have agreements and when you have collaborations, you of course give, the idea of those agreements is to give provisions on logistics supply. When there is a crisis especially, you have to open our ports as well as airports for US military, for logistics supply. Sri Lanka has signed it. So a lot of people are unaware of this.
Yeah.
So what happened was AXA was signed by Gotabaya Rajapaksa when he was the Secretary of Defense. Then it was extended by Sirisena during his regime without signing another document. There was another document called the Status Force Agreement, but he didn't want to sign that. That if you signed that, that would have been a bit trickier than the AXA. But AXA gives basic, for example, now there's a distress in the Indian Ocean. According to what I've read and what I've seen in the AXA document, there is a clause saying when there's distress, you need to provide the logistics supply. Basically, they will be paid. But the bases, as well as the airports and the ports. So that's something. So India signed a much lengthy one, which is Komkasa and Limoa. So why I said India would be worried is because India takes the Indian Ocean as their strategic calculation. I mean, they even use the phrase net security provider. So when it comes to net security provider, that means they need to know what's going on in the ocean. One justification is that they had all-out war, and but still you're a partner and you're closer. So that's where there are few references why this partnership. I kind of I saw it because I was riding from Washington while traveling. Then I saw like kind of disruptions between US as well as the Indian partnership in terms of security side. So that became a bit dangerous, like the Canada operation, they had the assassinations. Then they had a New York attempt. But problem was the Indian side, they were promoting these people. So when the Canada thing happened, when he was deported, the Canadian government deported after they were found.
The three guys that they accused of, yeah.
So one guy was promoted as the head of the intelligence agency.
Right.
So now he's the head of it. So the problem is, so I found like, okay, how would the US read this?
Yeah.
So I mean, there is, I mean, although we see in the media as well that, okay, that, shaking hands and all this, AXA is signed, limo is signed, so no, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
There are many sides you need to look. So that's why Sri Lanka needs to sort of see that the larger regional picture. We don't do that. We never calculate the larger picture when it comes to foreign policy. Now, we for example, we made a statement saying no Chinese research vessels in Sri Lanka. We said first we had a moratorium. Then we said we have a SOP, which is operating procedure. We will introduce a standard operating procedure. So where is it? See, we say it, but the document is still missing from about now 2 years now. We said it.
But why is this not happening? And I think that kind of gets to my first point of, if you have no leverage or value, then you can't actually commit to making decisions that give you flexibility, right? Because if we did put that moratorium and an SOP, then China will come and like make the government's life miserable, and so on and so forth for each great power. Is that not true?
No, if we are saying it, we need to do that properly. So if we are saying we are having a SOP, then the SOP needs to come out at least within a year's time. That's what I'm saying. If you're saying it, you need to do it. Okay. But then if that document, we need to draft that document. Okay, standard operating procedure is when a ship comes, the Sri Lankan Navy is going to go and inspect the ship. We're going to see any equipments that are detrimental to our security. And if that is the case, we're going to reject it. So that's the procedure. But are we in a position to do that?
Yeah.
So we have to get into all not only Chinese, it's going to be all the ships. Yeah. You can't target the Chinese because,
absolutely.
I mean, so it's going to be all ships. So the research vessels to check those equipments, as do we have that capacity to do that? And how are we going to do it? With whose assistance we're going to do it? So I don't think this document ever is going to come out. Even if it comes out, it's going to be kind of a very loose end document. But the problem is that, you see, there was an issue of India's security when the Chinese vessels were coming here, and the research vessels. So they were saying these hybrid vessels, they were used for dual. I mean, and many US security documents have that, saying that Chinese use for hybrid activity. But you need to find the authenticity. I mean, this is really happening. So, I mean, we don't need to be a victim, but we can always strike, I mean, to have a balance, like, okay, all research vessels are welcome to Sri Lanka. Then these are the standards that we have. For example, like the US agreement that we didn't sign. Now, one of the reasons we gave observations for that particular document, the status of force agreement. So some of the issues like, which the US was ready to adjust. Like using our frequency when their ships come and when so they want to use one of our frequencies. So that, we might say, okay, we can't do that, but we would be able to do something else, the alternative. So rather than being a passive actor and, just saying no, like, for example, like the fake fear you create, like MCC, Millennium Challenge Corporation. I can tell you about that. That's been clearly documented as well as I have highlighted. So when the MCC came to Sri Lanka, Millennium Challenge Corporation fund $480 million. It was a grant. We didn't accept it. Based on a committee that was appointed by the former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, he said the committee said there was going to be a huge national security problem. a national security issue, and and there were other discussions about it, and they made it a hyped up issue.
Right.
Even the present government, who was back then,
Made a
all about
huge
it.
uproar about it. Yeah.
So at the same time, we were giving observations to Sri Lanka as an independent research institute. I was heading I was the Director General of the Institute of National Security Studies at that time. So Nepal was also given the same amount,
Okay.
$450 to $60 million. So one of my researchers were working, he was a very close friend of mine. He called me and said, do you see any security threat that has been hyped up in the media, in your documents, in your research? I said, no, this is all rubbish. It's clearly, I don't see a US invasion coming, number one. They have drawn a corridor also from Trincomalee to Colombo, saying the US military is going to come by.
Come there, yeah.
Yeah,
Sure. Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. Then there was a CIA, a whole thing was going to come and all that. It's all rubbish because you don't invite CIA, they usually come. So,
Uninvited, yeah. They don't knock on the door.
yeah, so the thing is, so Nepal accepted it with protests and all that, but they did accept it. So they managed to benefit from that, while Sri Lanka rejected it,
Right.
saying it's a national security issue and all that. So these are the things, I mean, so if you don't calculate it properly, then you would lose a lot, as well as, so we need that sort of strength. To have that strength, you need the capacity to do it. Even the SOP or the other stuff, like, for example, the MOUs you sign with other countries. That's how you get entangled.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Because you have too many different deals and variables with too many different players.
Exactly. So the players are interested in Sri Lanka because of the geopolitical, of course, the location and the geostrategic. It's been there from the ancient history. I mean, if you look at my first volume, the Sri Lanka at Crossroads, where I discuss about, starting from Ptolemy's time, the interest of the location has been there. It's not this period, if you take it, yes, I mean, BRI, you can say BRI Indo-Pacific period,
Right.
our lives, right? Then you might have another period, but the location of geography does not change, so that's where the interest is. So I think you need to understand that our people knows about the geostrategic location, the importance,
Yeah.
but they don't know how to deal with the actors.
Right. Yeah.
You see, the powerful actors,
Yeah.
the middle powers. So we always look at the powerful actors, right? What about the others?
Like the Gulf states.
There's so many, the middle powers.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of work with Thailand, you can do a lot of work in Cambodia, the other powers, I mean, Indonesia, many countries. So I think, so our foreign policy needs to be sort of more broader in our approach. And you need to have some sort of clarity in what we do.
Right.
Like what Mrs. Bandaranaike did.
Yeah.
I mean, she took, those are visionary work, like the, zone of peace and all that. You were right to say that, Diego Garcia, all these people are coming in at that time. But there was an attempt. Now, even now, we can't do anything to this war, right? So what we could do is, as a region, we can work together to secure our nations as well as our ocean space. Those are attempts that we can take, internationally we can take. As well as the Global South, there's a huge discourse about it.
Right.
And back in the day, we played, I would say, a leadership role in the Global South when it comes to Bandung and all that. So those are important. I think we need to work with all powers, but then rather than being hostile. Now, one interview I captured when I started the Sri Lankan chapter, the last one, is from the former foreign minister, Ali Sabri. So he was on record when he was capturing data on that particular. So he said that his president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, was getting instructions from India.
Yep. Yeah, you mentioned this at your book launch also, and I think it was you or one of your speakers, and I was really taken aback.
Yeah, no, see, I as a researcher find it also hard to, digest that.
Yeah.
Right, number one. And it's wrong to accuse India also in everything, that all our faults and all. I mean, if you read this, it's not a critical book about India, number one, or it's not a critical book about any country. It's about understanding their own vulnerabilities, own issues, and how these countries look at the big powers. So this is the foreign minister, and these are people who had power in their hand. So these are not ordinary people. I mean, talking to a taxi driver in Cambodia was a different story. This is the foreign minister. Then also I interviewed the former president. So I compare him with Hasina.
Okay.
So Hasina basically says the same thing, that it was the US who was behind, of orchestrating her removal.
Sure. And Imran Khan in Pakistan.
Imran Khan, so Gotabaya mentions the same thing in my interview, that it was an external hand, and it was not their own doing. But look at how the other countries view that view. I mean, their perspectives. Like Cambodia agrees on, like, okay, that was an external force, but Vietnam doesn't. Well, most of them, they will say that it's their own making. They didn't know how to do the. I mean, you had a fertilizer issue, so it was not the West who was behind it. And
Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, this is very I see Vietnam is very pragmatic in their approach. I mean, that's why they're having a growth rate 8.5%.
Yeah.
So while some countries were having, I went for one of those conferences. It's called the Color Revolution Conference. It was very interesting. So there was Russians there, and there was like, okay, what's going on? I said, no. The 1944, the Rimland is taken over. So it's like, I mean, so people are talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Although you laugh at it. I mean, Washington, if you talk about it, you wonder, it's like, either it's conspiracy or what's going on. But in the US also, you have a bit of conspiracy now. I mean, your president's talking about deep state and all that. So kind of
and with the Epstein things, who knows?
Exactly. So it's like a mixed baggage given to you, right? I mean, to ordinary people. Just imagine, like, how do you, I mean, we find it difficult to kind of go into detail and find out, okay, these are what these people are talking, the people who are in power, and then look at the amount of disinformation as well as information. I mean, some of those clearly are narrated because of their own personal political gains.
Yeah,
of course, they have lost power, clearly. And then, but it's important to understand how they propel nationalistic sentiments in those countries sometimes, which becomes a serious, I would say, issue for the development of a country, or I mean, you're moving out of that secular space, right? So you're trying to sort of propagate the hyped up nationalist agenda to come back to power. I mean, you've seen, you look at the region, you will see that. So for people understand that better, like what's going on in the region, and they will be much more sort of savvy to understand, okay, this is happening there also. I mean, this is the same thing. These bunch of people are trying to orchestrate the same thing. So that's where we need to go. Okay. I think Vietnam has got that understanding. That's why I said, like, we don't want to even lease our ports.
Yeah.
Who wants to do that? That's old school.
Old
that's
school
like,
stuff.
Yeah. So I said, we want technology.
Right. Knowledge sharing,
technology. We manufacture chips. While some other countries were, much more focused on other areas like the Belt and Road, or like infrastructure. So it's kind of a mix, I would say, baggage.
So actually, I want to kind of discuss you, as you just mentioned, the Belt and Road, and you also mentioned Thucydides trap, which is basically essentially the great power competition. And long story short, it says it's inevitable that these powerful actors will act rationally and will end up at war. So considering that, considering where we are, one interesting part you mentioned in the book in chapter 1 regarding the Belt and Road is we always talk about the debt trap. And then you have one school that I think rightly argues that we are not indebted to China as much as we are with the ISPs and international capital markets. So that's a very convenient narrative for the West to talk about the debt trap. But you mentioned in your book that it's a strategic trap where they kind of penetrate your political and elite class, and that Washington is not as concerned about that, and they seem hyper-focused on the monetary debt trap aspect of this. But in order to get to the monetary debt trap, you must have strategic capture of the political class first. And I think you argue that China does that very, very well.
Correct.
But then again, by Gotabeya's and all these guys' own admission, the CIA does that too.
Yeah.
So what is Sri Lanka's solution to the strategic trap that these great powers inflict on an elite class?
I think first thing is to understand, this is a really good question that you had, you formulated it quite well. You need to understand when it's coming to your country, number one. For example, like, I'll give you one good example, is the lengthy interview I had with the former president. So he said my network was captured, right? That's what he said. But then he said, okay, how was it captured? Then he said, different, I mean, it's like different sets of ideas come in, right?
Contradictory.
Contradictory. Doesn't matter. But if the strategic trap is coming in, strategic trap has three areas where I've discussed. One is capturing the political parties, right? Funding political parties. Then you have going into the elites of the country and the military. So all three dimensions, if you look at it in countries, I've written a paper on the strategic trap. It was published in NUS, National University of Singapore. Clearly mention how the data that I've got on visits by certain, I mean, if you look at different countries, and then also funding. So the former president sees that that it was the US who was part of that whole strategy. And some other country will say it was China who was doing the same thing. And so it's important that we understand if there is a strategic dimension to any project. For example, Hambantota. Now you're given for 99 years lease.
Yep.
Then you have a prime minister who's coming and saying that, oh, it's not 99. I've quoted him. Former Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena.
Right, I think I have it. It's 99, but can go on for another 99.
Yeah,
something like that.
So look at that statement. So you won't get a statement like that from, like in the US, right? I mean, you won't get a statement from another, a country like Singapore. Just imagine a Singapore minister comes and say, oh, hold on, no, it's not 99, it can go on.
Yeah, that would be headlines everywhere in the world.
It won't. The reason it won't is because they are aware of what they're doing. They understand the strategic depth of certain projects that they get into. Here is something like this, like we, for example, now the port city, right? Some would argue saying it's going to be a place for money laundering, other stuff, and various other activities. Then I see that special economic zone, it's done in few other countries also the same. I see the same pattern that China has done. But we wanted this project, right? Yeah. We have advocated, we wanted it. That's what the Chinese are saying. You wanted it, we did the project. Now you're blaming us, which is not fair.
Yeah.
So I think you need to understand, that's why the strategic depth of what we really want as a nation. That I don't think we have.
Yeah.
Now we built Matala. The time they built Matala, I was the director of Lakshman Kadirgamar Institute. So when I have why you need a second airport in the south, one answer was that Bangkok, there's one airport in Bangkok, there's another one in Phuket. Okay, so this is exact what I had, and I've captured that also in one of my writings. There's a very senior person in the government who said that. So. Okay, here is, so Bangkok is there, then you have Phuket, why can't we have it? He asked me, I said, Phuket is different to Hambantota.
So they'll justify anything, right? Anything.
Yeah, so you try to justify without any strategic depth or without any sort of strategic thinking. But now here, at least you need national planning, right? This is about national planning, it's not even about strategic thinking, it's about, you need to understand, okay, if these people are going to convert things to military assets, or that's the strategic part that should come from the foreign ministry. But national planning, right? So when it comes to national planning, if you look at 1978, we abolished the National Planning Committee. That was where the intellectuals like Godfrey Gunathilaka, Maga, right, all of these top people who was there, then Professor Gunasekera. So everybody, that's a space where planning happened, and that was also abolished in 1978, unfortunately. They tried to bring it back in 19th Amendment, bring it back in several, but they never brought it back. I don't know why. That's a good question that I think somebody needs to. I've been trying to ask, why can't we bring this committee back?
Right.
Because that's the space where academics, research inputs, and everybody can get into planning of a
Right.
country. Now here there's a planning department which allocates budgets. That's not planning. I'm talking about planning, like the Mattala case that I mentioned. Do we really need it? If the politician really wants to do that, another airport like Phuket, there should be a committee saying rejecting it, saying your thinking is wrong. That's how the other countries work.
Right.
Now, Singapore also has something called the Futures Office, right? The Prime Minister has something called the Futures Thinkers, which is the futures input is taken always.
Right.
So they even look at a project not for 10 years or 20 years, but for 30 to 40, long term. Because that airport will be not feasible maybe in several years' time.
Sure.
So that's
Absolutely.
long-term thinking.
Right.
So when the planning committee was there, you did have some sort of thing. Abolished for a reason at that time, back in the 78, maybe because the open economy and they wanted to play it in a different, maybe a different, it was a different moment. So I wouldn't know why, the exact reason for abolishing it. But it was an important committee to revisit. So when it comes to strategic thinking, yes, you need that side also, because some projects you might want to take national security clearances, because in terms of if there is a long-term plan, like even Hambantota, like I mentioned about, I compared with two data sets, right, RAND data and aid data. There is no indication to say that the Chinese are coming with, they're militarizing this place. There is nothing like that up now. But
Right.
aid data says, yes, there is a bit of a slight danger there.
Right.
So
So
it might come after Djibouti.
Right. So isn't that kind of the argument that right now it always starts off with an investment, gets into a commercial thing, and they understand that, okay, depending on the government in Sri Lanka, the sentiment, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, then when the opportunity comes, they will capture it and make it military.
Yeah, so that's where again the strategic trap comes in, right? So if it's easy to capture the political elites, and also if it's easy to penetrate into political parties, so it comes from, of course, funding channels.
Yeah.
And when you look at the patterns of other countries, that's what I'm saying. So people need to have that sort of strategic depth. The leaders need to have that. You see, the vision has to be like, I remember one incident where Gotabaya makes a phone call with President Xi, and I've documented that. He said, after the phone call, he says that I want to follow the Chinese development model. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So you see, it's just a phone call.
Yeah. And he just changed his tune.
Now, there's a danger in when you don't have that strategic sort of depth. Then one point of his interview, he says, I was too democratic, and this is what happened. Excuse me. No, I was democratic, and I gave them to protest. I gave them all that. I was too democratic, I think. Maybe I did not have that kind of a balance properly.
Yes, we all wish he was less democratic. Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
So
interesting.
yeah, the whole interview was more than hours. But I only
Interesting.
captured one line, and that became the.
Kudos to you, Asanga, for a straight face during that interview. Really, kudos to you.
Yeah, but you see, the problem is they start blaming their own issues, like own faults what they've done. Even even removing me from the position, it came to the cabinet. Then he said, I don't do that sort of stuff. It must be one of my advisors and all that. But you see, there is inconsistency in terms of when it comes to policies, and as well as professionalism. That's
Right.
where it's lacking. And when you look at other countries where they have some sort of, that's how you win the investors also. What I found in Vietnam, I asked about corruption in Vietnam. This is very interesting. Then he said, inside the government machinery, we make sure that the corruption is very less.
Right.
And we have tried to, that's the reason a lot of people trust and bring the money, as well as, the investments are flowing into the country. So that's something that Sri Lanka would need to build, because what you have is a case. I mean, if you look at the IMF diagnostic, which I was part of that document, I was a technical advisor to IMF advising on. So it clearly mentions how much the depth of corruption, the issues, and and also the institution, how weak the institutions were.
Right.
So if you don't have the strength of that, you will have a strategic trap very easily.
And I guess the best strategic trap is the institutions rather than the individuals, right?
Yeah, if the institutions are weak, then you don't need the institutions to make those decisions, right?
Yeah.
That's where it is. It's the individuals.
Fair enough.
Individuals who take.
Fair enough. I get that. Yeah.
And even in foreign policy calculation, it's not a one man's job, right? I mean, I can give an input. It can be debated. It can be discussed.
Right.
It can be taken in. But there is a lot of where United States. That's where I have one area where I have a sort of an argument with Kishore Mehbubani, who was my teacher
Okay.
at the LKY. And he says U.S. is falling and China is rising. And at that time, it was 7-8 years ago when he wrote his book. So I had a different idea, because I didn't agree with that the U.S. was falling, because the structures of the U.S. is very strong, even now.
Right.
So presidents come for a very shorter time.
Sure.
But the structures are really, really strong. I mean, if you look at their department, the structures, the planning, they're not that weak. And although we see it as, but you can always reset. U.S. has done the amazing part that the other countries, you see, China has learned this art. One of the reasons, now see, everybody blames the U.S., but everybody wants to go to U.S. They don't want to go and live in China, or even our former presidents who were very critical. They can live there, but they don't want to go there.
Absolutely.
The reason is they know that that place has structures, because you don't need to work at the highest level or the second level. There are structures that
In every level.
Every level, your health is looked after.
Yeah.
Your other, and also the strategic planning when it comes. That's where I'm involved in the research side. Extremely strong. I mean, tell me another city in the world which has 220 think tanks.
Right.
So Washington has 220 think tanks. There's no other city. So if you look at, they may produce different narratives, different independent thinking, but there is strength in the structures. So I don't agree on falling. You see, U.S. is falling and then there is another rise.
Right.
They might reduce the perception of the U.S. is quite weak because of these wars and all that. But there is always a comeback.
Well, you speak of the U.S. in terms of being spiritually exhausted. So isn't that part of that decline?
Yeah, so if you look at it now, you have high inequality in the society. You have many, it's a highly polarized, if you look at it. Like I was teaching in Kentucky one time, and when I go to Washington, it's a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
Two different perspectives. So you have supporters of Trump,
Sure.
very strong Republican base. Then you have the Democrat base. But very polarized. Their TV stations are also, I tried to understand, I couldn't understand at all. I mean, the first year, like, I watched Fox, then I watched the other side.
Right, yeah.
So when you go, it's quite, as a Sri Lankan, then you have a large Indian diaspora also, which speaks about the region. Then what I understood was the first year, when I was working in Washington, that India needs to give space to other voices, like the surrounding countries. So that's something that's a limitation that I saw, a big limitation from India. So the surrounding countries, if you look at it, there's not a single director, like from Bangladesh, Nepal, or like from Maldives. So it's an Indian version of the South Asia, always. Of course, India is large, India's diaspora is large, agree. But the reason that I found that now, that's very interesting. When I was traveling to the region and going to these countries like Nepal, Bangladesh and all, this is the same reason that I found that they had a problem with the center, which is the India. That's why I bring up that question that India needs to, rather than India saying India is great, that others need to say India is great.
Yeah.
Surrounding you can do that.
fair enough.
You can do that. You see, there was times that surrounding countries, like during the ancient time, of course, the King Asokas and all, you can make, because our cultures are very close, interconnected. Here is a kind of a deep suspicion. Then there is, okay, because of them, we are in this state. It's not fully because of them. I mean, of course, they try to help. Like India was the first country to come and rescue the country.
Yeah,
like give
sure.
large amount of money,
Yeah.
close to 4 billion.
Yeah, that was a lifesaver.
That's
This was
a
a lifesaver.
lifesaver. Yeah, that's and before IMF came.
Yeah.
So that's why. So there should be appreciation. There should be. I mean, of course, we have worked together in many issues. We can work together as a region, and Sri Lanka can play a big role because Sri Lanka does not have direct borders. I mean, Maldives, when you look at the strategic thinking, it's still, I mean, we look at the research side. They have not, I think they have probably one research agency, but still they are under development. But you see, Sri Lanka has got that space. And Sri Lanka, from the history, we have that momentum created on the foreign policy, looking at the larger
picture of things.
Can play a bigger role because you can bring in actors who are fighting with India together. I mean, India, Pakistan, or others to our country speak. You know,
Mediate.
Yeah, it's a bigger role that Sri Lanka could play. Even Myanmar is in chaos now.
Yeah.
What Myanmar, when I basically I've written about Myanmar, the Belt and Road, the issues that they're having. There's a huge resource deposit in Kachin state. They're fighting over the mineral resource. There are a lot of issues. It's like a civil war, prolonged civil war. We had a civil war for 3 decades. We can help them. Myanmar and Sri Lanka has a lot of historical relationship, Buddhist connection. There's so much. If you look at one of the arguments that I bring to the reader is that one of the Israeli scholars were telling me that you see, my thinking on India and China getting together is not going to happen. It's you know, that's you're going in a different direction, which is a direction that you never. Because it's two different. I said no. Look, the two civilizational states in the ancient time. My reference point was to Nalanda.
Okay.
So during the Nalanda University in the ancient times, there was Chinese scholars and Indian scholars who worked together on translating Buddhism, working together.
Interesting.
So there was a moment that was happening, you see. So the argument now is that no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, don't you think that moment is far? That ship has sailed, though. Any possibility of these two civilizational entities?
In the past, they have worked together. That's the thing. Civilization states have worked together. In the present, modern day, if you look at it, it's less, I would say. But is there a moment? Again, Spikeman has mentioned that. But he has drawn an axis between Russia and China. So that's the dangerous axis. He said that if they get together, then you're looking at a. So that's the axis right now. What he has seen after the Second World War. And he also had some reference to Japan, importance of Japan, and how they need to be closer to U.S. So these are all in the strategic map.
Okay.
So what you have to understand is that civilizational states can work together. I mean, we can, for example, look at the border disputes. We did resolve, to some extent. We had the tension. We resolved. I mean, the two countries, which is good. I mean, for Asia and two large markets, right? I mean, if you look at the trade volumes has been growing. And trade volumes, and both of them have two strategies. That's why I mentioned, like, this is Chinese strategy. This is the Indian strategy for Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Okay, so look at.
And you talk about that deeply in your book. Yeah.
Then I go to the past also. Okay, this is Sun Tzu, this is Chanakya.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Here is it. This is, I mean, they use the same
Sort of structure.
different
It's the
structures,
same
right?
fundamental core, like
Yeah.
strategic value. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, one is ahead of the game because China is ahead of the game. It started early. Dr. Jaishankar clearly mentions this in his book. The reason that India is behind because China started early. They
Much
had
earlier.
that vision of Deng Xiaoping, and so that transformation, as well as then there's another argument which is very interesting, saying that so the foreign secretary former foreign secretary of India says that no, it was you who built China. That was the United States who built China.
Yeah. And but there is a large truth to that, right?
Then this, yeah, the US scholar is arguing that no, we didn't build, they built it themselves.
Right.
So, I mean, they came into the markets of WTO,
Sure,
all
sure.
that, and yeah, so I think Rash Doshi, he's also a scholar who, he has he's a very interesting book, I think Long Game, that's the book. So he said there's a blunting period,
Okay.
a period of blunting, where, I mean, WTO as well as, all these, China coming into as a globalized, power. So look at the situation now. I mean, China is now US has walked out of all the international organizations, while China is speaking about the global norms, the international organizations, the trade. So,
Yeah.
so you have quite a different kind of a viewpoint right now. So I think it's a time that I see civilizational states can sort of gain kind of momentum back again.
Okay.
There is hope for Asia and all these countries, but they're stuck. One of the weaknesses I speak about civilization state is that they're moving out sometimes of that secular space. Too much of propagation of Hindutva, or over propagation of even in Sri Lanka. Or
But that is adding to the mistrust of nation
Exactly,
states of
exactly.
India, right?
Yeah, because if you look at the periphery, you see most of them, the Islamic or the Muslim states, right? So you propagate Hindutva, and then you say, no, this is the Ram temple,
Yeah.
and this is our vision. Of course, but then you have to make it more secular. The reason the United States is ahead of the game is they can absorb anyone in the world to their community, anyone.
Yeah.
That I found that's amazing.
That's incredible. I
that's
don't
incredible.
think in any time in history that's ever happened.
No. I go to China, right? So I mean, travel quite a lot. There go. The moment China learns this art of to bringing in, and it's quite difficult also for civilization states because the US is a modern state.
Yeah.
And you can bring in, you want to be very flexible in terms of because you have not deep cultural roots to do that. But the advantage of US is that, but when it comes to the weaknesses of the civilization states that I discuss those are the areas. So.
Right, it's the closeness that they tend to have. So I think the US allows birthright citizenship, but I mean civilizational states, not even one allows birthright citizenship. So it's hard to absorb also.
No. So you try to even say, okay, the world's largest democracy, India, then you say, okay, elections are going on, everything is democratic. And from the news it's not, right? Then scholars are very quiet. And that's the thing. So it shouldn't be like that. You see, there should be spaces given. Okay, critical space is very important. The moment you sort of what happened to Sri Lanka's fall, I tell you how I see the perspective.
Okay.
I mean, leaders say they were toppled by this and that.
Yeah.
One of the first biggest mistakes was that you look at how many military officers were appointed into the government bureaucracy, and there's so many of them. It would never happen. Then one of them told me it was a very interesting thing. So Gotabaya, who was a strong kind of a figure, he had a complete change to a democratic leader, and that was the weakness. So while you have a team of I think 17 to 18 of them, who were running government departments and heads and all that. You had the foreign secretary of military and so on. But they didn't understand the depth of the strategic depth, what needs to, because there were many officers who were actually capable, and they have been in those sort of areas of, they've been working. Even the archaeology department, they had a military gentleman. But you see, that's not the, that's a completely different pattern, where the world is going in a different direction. So I think, no, that's not, you see, I think a lot of people don't understand my sort of analysis there. When I wrote a few papers there, Coming Anarchy was written 1 year before the crisis, and it was published. That's the last paper I wrote before I went to US. I borrowed the Coming Anarchy from Kaplan. The reason I wanted to have that sort of a subject or the title was I wanted to create, there is a alarming situation, because he was interfering in many departments, many judiciary also at that time. So there was a lot of, when you have when you have interference into the structure, you have a breakup, and that's what happened. So one good example during his interview was that he said, the instructions that I got from the foreign ministry was misleading, he said. So he did not trust. This was the incident at the Swiss, there was a kidnapping,
Yes,
of the Swiss lady, and this is the foreign ministry gave me wrong instructions, while my advisors gave me, some of them gave me right advice, and then so there was a mistrust. You see, he was, I think he was inexperienced, he was new to the job, as well as he was, I think the whatever the thoughts or ideas he had to develop the country, and came from, I think, inexperience, or the ones who were surrounded, where he blames now, right? The advisors did not advise me well.
Right. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with the president. But do you find it like, let's say, the current government, do you find like they will have a very similar issue with the strategic capture?
No, they have, amazingly, they have appointed good people to position as professionals. All of them that I've met has some understanding on the subject, which is quite good. I mean, I see President, he's only been in office for like 3 years now, I would say, 2.5. But during that time, there's a balanced foreign policy. They've worked on quite well. I mean, if you look at, this is one of the first external shocks he's getting, the Iran war. But he's navigating, I would say, quite well. I mean, he would with India as well as the other countries. But he needs to see a sort of a longer horizon, rather than sort of, bring in those committees back, the National Planning Committee, and also for the Foreign Ministry. It's important that you have those strategic thinking. It's sort of, rather than, you think for a very short a time and calculate. Now, for example, the benefits that you get from RCEP, regional blocks, from trade, so bilateral trade, FTAs, how to sort of, see, if you look at Thailand and the FTAs, they're working really well.
Yeah.
And they're, as a nation, they also signed 15 MOUs with China, their Prime Minister, the lady Shinawatra. But, so I did a comparison, our president also. But the thing is that you need to understand what you really want for the country.
Right.
And I believe that the present team, but it's not fair. I see a lot of narratives for the last few weeks that have come that, you see, you need stability now, right? Because you can't have, you can't have presidents every 3 years. Obviously, you need some sort of stability in the country. Political stability is very important. So people need to understand that, because you become emotional and all that. And the fuel prices, of course, it's global now. It's not
Absolutely.
it's not something that, and he's been very transparent, which I really like. So I see only positive things.
Just to challenge you on that, has he been transparent though, Asanga? He signed deals with India. He signed the Sinopec deal with China. I mean, what are the details of those? We have no idea.
I've asked about the Indian thing. So a few officers, why don't you? They said it's not a big thing that we have signed, but I said if it's not a big thing, you should put it out.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So that's where I discuss in my book. You see, every time we sign behind in backdoor deals and all that, the 99 Hambantota or whatever, So when you do that, you sort of drag the country into sort of, and you invite a security sphere of, unnecessary sort of influence to your own. It's easy, but the people are saying that to be transparent is a good thing for the leader. So I think the leader needs to understand from the past what has happened. When you're taking those calculations, what are the inputs he has taken? First thing is that as a researcher, what I will say, okay, how much of inputs have we given to sign that? So if there was nothing, then there's a problem. So if there was so much of inputs given, this has to be done. This is a reason for national interest.
Right.
Then so that's why. So I think you need to be transparent. It's very important to be transparent. And you see, if you're not, most of the leaders, even say Marcos in Philippines, how he survived that huge, massive rallies. Now 20 billion is missing. That's a large amount. I think 20 billion is quite a big amount when it comes to Sri Lanka. I don't think it has of corruption. So when it comes, they are called ghost projects also, which is quite interesting. The project is not there visibly, but money is. But so how he became transparent is that he said, okay, he's, of course, his own people, right? His own administration. So he said, I'm going to appoint he had become a champion now, so appoint the people, committee
to investigate
it. But he has managed to, but the opposition, recently, so they want me to come back again because we are doing this index called the ECGI, Economic Crimes and Geopolitical Index.
Okay.
So they want to come back. But the opposition is saying that no, they're not arrested the big sharks, they're just the little fellows.
Sure.
Yeah, so you need to put the bigger fellows in. He arrested also a few people.
Okay.
So that's why. So being transparent also saves his situation.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was on a few months ago, it was on a critical point, like, could the Bangladesh or Sri Lanka thing happen in Manila?
Right.
It happened back in the 80s.
Right.
Marcos, his father.
Yeah.
Again, corruption, large issues. So, but when I went, we got it right. We said, no, it won't go into that extent. Because if you look at the protesters, they have a mix sort of. They were not against it. They didn't want to change the president. They were against, what are the corruption, as well as they're fed up of it. There was a lot of poverty there also. Although it's seen as ahead of the, as a country who's, if you look at the ASEAN, the informal economy, if you look at it, is quite vulnerable, as well as there's a lot of poverty in there. So I think in here also, the biggest concentration has to be on the informal economy. I see like a large group after the crisis, the economic crisis. There's three-wheel drivers to, there's without job security.
Yep.
So there's a larger group of people. So that needs to, they quickly could get into bit emotional into that and sort of create that political chaos in the country because they don't have a safety net. They get paid every day, daily income. It's clear, even in other countries, why they protest, as well as why they're angry with the other or elites or the rich in the country.
This is a great opportunity for external players to come in and just penetrate and make use of that sort of sentiment, is it not?
Exactly. So when I came to Sri Lanka, so I was like for the first few weeks, I was wondering what's going on in the country. I could not even understand what's going on because some of the elites were showing off their cars and helicopters, and another one was showing his car and a helicopter. And I was wondering what on earth is going on. You see, it's now see there is also another problem because you try to create that bubble with this large the informal economy where you don't have job security, you don't have a transport, the money to go for your daily job as well as, and the public transport is quite bad, right? And so then you show your luxury vehicles and all that, and then you show the helicopters. It has no meaning. There's number one. Number two is that it has a huge, it shows the inequality of the society.
It makes it real.
It makes it real. And so with these present situations of price hikes and all that, you need to calculate all that. So one of the ways you have to understand this is like, for example, the research that comes, what you do in behalf of the government, like sociology research or whatever. I see we have 14,000 Gram Niladhari, the smaller. So can they look after these, our village level? How strong are they? So that has to, it is a wider network. It's not something that the central government has to do everything. Why should the central, now one of the questions that the researchers are asking, they don't give us money. And one question, why should they give you money? In the US it doesn't happen like that. There is Carnegie who gives money, there is Rockefellers who give money, there is, if you look at the Millennium Project, our institutions, we have about 70 odd funders, right? So there's so many funders, the private sector. If you look at ORF in India, the think tank, the Reliance funds heavily. I saw a figure of 5 million crore or whatever. So then you have Zuslon, then you have TBS funding. So you see our rich or the elites, I mean, I have no issue with them, but then you show the helicopter and the car, but it's okay, but then there should be some money given to research. That's more important. There should be some sort of contribution to the research of the country.
Right.
The problem is that we are at 0.1%. I looked at the data.
0.1%
GDP
for R&D?
Yeah. The whole R&D of Sri Lanka is 0.1.
That's the private sector as well.
The entire.
That's crazy.
I know. So at least the global average is 2. So you need to get at least into some. So there's nothing coming out. I mean, so you wonder, like, the research means about publications, quality publications. It's not about talk shows. Like, a lot of people misunderstand. Like, you have about 4 people and you talk about a subject, and that's not the research. The research is, I learned, when I was doing some work here at Kadirgamar as well as at the Defense Research, I learned a bit, but when I went to the US, I learned the process, the methodology is how much time they spend, enormous amount of time. And that's the reason that you're ahead of the game. It is the highest research R&D nation is Israel. I mean, if you look at in terms of more than 4%, then comes the US and all. But Singapore, if you take it, it's spending an enormous amount of money. So it's an investment for your own country in terms of agricultural research, in terms of other areas. But when it comes to strategic decisions, also the same. You need the right people to do that, and you need right institutes to produce it. And if the institutes don't produce what is required for the government, then the advisors who are around, probably like what Gotabaya says, I had the wrong advisors. Then you look at that single people saying like because there's a problem here. Like you have large documents coming in. As one president I remember back then, so he gets a lot of documents translated because he couldn't read English back then. So you get, like, for example, your strategy documents, a lot of stuff. It takes a long time to translate, right? Then the advisors read this and sort of brief the president. That's how it works.
That's it. That's it?
Yeah. So I read one particular on one of the Prime Minister Modi's one of the strategic documents. So they have translated it.
Right.
So I said, before you give it to the president, send it to me. I want to read it. So they sent it to me, and they have directly translated it.
Okay.
Again, so I said, hold on. And yeah, so that you see, yeah, so that's funny. So one of the threat forecasts I did in January 2019, that's the East Sunday bombing, right? So one of the questions I saw, right, when I said I wrote something in January, which was captured in the Presidential Commission report. There was a report in 2019 January about there could be a threat when the detonators fall. So I wrote that. So one of the when it was captured in the social media, there was a comment by, I couldn't remember who it was, few actually. Was it written in Sinhalese or English?
Okay. It was written in English and they had to
It was
translate
written in
it.
English, but I don't know whether that was the issue, because it was always given in English at that time. That circulation is called threat forecast, but there is a problem there too, because if it's directly translated, then the message goes in. So that's why there's a strategic community has a huge role in nations like in Sri Lanka, because the external, I mean, it's very clear from these books, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, I've shown it right at them, like, look, these are the challenges the nation is facing. These are the interests of the big powers. So now it's clear, I believe, to some extent. So,
and I want to say, like, with the book is very focused on the structural incentives of countries based on geography, based on culture, politics, society, and you kind of amalgamate all of that into a very realist perspective, and that's something that we don't really discuss in Sri Lanka at all. So we don't have the concept of maybe fighting asymmetrically or managing our policy asymmetrically against big powers. I've never heard that. Actually, your book might be the only book that I've personally seen of any recent memory that speaks about that. I want to kind of discuss the regional issues, because that's also one of your chapters, where I guess we know now that the US has, we know what the US and China is kind of like going after, but I'm curious about your thoughts on the whole India issue, because India, as you said, this is their backyard. But from what I can see, they are losing. They're losing influence, they're losing. It seems like China has successfully entrapped them in the string of pearls. And do you kind of have that same viewpoint about China entrapping them, encircling them? And India seems to be reactive to all of these things.
no, I think they became better in the game. See, the longer game, if you look at it, Chinese, that's why I mentioned from data, in terms of trade, in terms of cultural programs, in terms of personal, I mean, direct contact with those people, they managed to establish that trust. Now, what happened was, I think, to India was, of course, they were the ones who were at least counterbalancing the Chinese influence for the United States. So, you look at it,
Sure.
the Indo-Pacific strategy. They were the ones who talked about the norms, values, rules-based order. Then look what has happened to the US.
Yep.
So it's quite difficult. They're in a difficult position also. When they were also pushed and moved, I mean, you can't blame Modi also for everything, but it's what's been happening. There are a lot of external elements that made the Prime Minister move in that direction. If you read one of my first writings about Modi, was when he became, first time when he became Prime Minister. It's called the Modi Doctrine, the book. And I actually like the concepts that he had, the neighborhood first. I mean, neighborhood first was, I mean, at least when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, finally, there's somebody who will, talk about the neighborhood, win the neighborhood, and neighborhood we'd start praising.
But
it didn't. So that's why. So let's find out the reasons. What was it? So one is there, of course, the miscalculations, clearly. And when it comes to basically supporting certain, I would say, domestic leaders in those countries, as well as their, ideologies, as well as and India has moved away. That's why I mentioned the secure space which they had. So over-propagating something. And then you're showing the sphere of the influence. There's one incident mishandling the Chinese. I mean, there was a Chinese proposal for a project, and then that was never a security threat for India. When India pushed it out, and then they bought in an Indian, that's Adani Group, right? So the replacements was not also that, I would say, the best replacements.
It couldn't fit the need.
It couldn't fit the need, as well as Adani's had their own ways of working on it, doing things. But then the ground reality has to be, I think, has to be understood much better. They understand the political reality really well. Political understanding is really, really good. I think what's going to happen next, they would know.
Okay.
The calculations are really good. But when it comes to winning the community, when it comes to on the project levels, you see, every time I speak as a researcher, so they say, oh, Indians are, it's going to be another, the Indian, so they're capturing the country, or they're trying to, there's more fear in India than China. So when it comes to Southeast Asia, they view China as a power, clearly, but not India. India is a market, good market, but when the Indians come in, for example, one economist who I spoke in Vietnam, so he said that, he said, give me a basic example of why you say that India, you don't see it as a, they said, look, have you seen pictures of people going in train? Do you see anything like that in China?
Yeah.
You see, that's how they view it.
Right.
They say, proper, but there's there's still a large population of poverty and all that, but India is, India is in the right, they are on the right trajectory of development and all that, but what I'm trying to say is that this is how they perceive, but ahead of the game, I think they need to build more trust rather than, ordering those countries. Some of them mentions that, India is always kind of bullying, like, they're always trying to, and one officer, I think I did capture that. He was a very senior government officer in Sri Lanka, present government. So he mentioned that I can't even speak 5 minutes with this man. So it's an Indian diplomat, and he said, then I said, have you spoken? I said, no, I haven't spoken. And I said, can I note it? Can I write this down? I said, yes, you can write it down, but you can't mention
my name, right?
Yeah, so I did. So that shows there's a bit of a hostility as well as aggression from the Indian side. And that needs to sort of move into sort of that trust we had from the past. And, you give money for 4 billion, you protect the people, you bring in investment, you do a lot, right, for the country. Then if you can't, and if the person in the government says that I can't speak 5 minutes, then there's something wrong, right? So there's something seriously wrong. So that's why India needs to bridge that gap. And so that's one thing that India needs to work on. I think also on when you bring in like the maritime rescue coordination centers and all that, you need to have an understanding, like you need to talk to the people, be transparent, tell them what we are doing. We are not coming to come for an invasion or trying to capture so it's a joint operations. When India, Sri Lanka and Maldives signed the intelligence pact, we had an intelligence trilateral. I was very happy, but it was on discussion for 10 years. I didn't know that.
Really?
So 10 years they spoke and finally they signed. But when they signed it, the reason I was happy was I saw the victims of the Easter Sunday. I was there at the site. That shouldn't have never happened. That shouldn't have never happened in this country. Because if we had those structures, if we had those communication channels, it was very loose. The structures were it's a case where you show that one day you call, one day you don't call, then another day, then in the morning you call.
Right.
At the moment. Then you see, that shows that you are not properly structured, the institution, then you internally, one of the first things I mentioned was have an integrated communication, like a central communication.
Right.
You see, it's not individuals who talk to each other and say, how do you get the people out of the church? You can't do that, because if you don't have one of the central, basically a center to sort of coordinate these issues. So those are important areas. And now even if you look at also communications channels. Now, one incident I remember, this is recorded at IISS conference in Shanghai, the Shangri-La Dialogue. And so this is with Ram Madhavan, who was an advisor at that time. I'm not sure where he is now, during Modi's government. So I get into a discussion with him, and so he says that I ask him, when a submarine comes, India and Sri Lanka get into hot waters every time a Chinese submarine comes. And do you have something in, for the next submarine? Then Madhavan says, oh, we can pick up the phone. We have open communication now. Our Prime Minister can call your President. So I said, every time you have a submarine, you don't call each other.
The President,
Yeah, so you need to have some sort of institutional level, some sort of structure. Then he completely rejected that. He said, no, we can call each other. So that's where the problem is.
Right, interesting.
So every time I wrote that as a joke in one of my pieces, which are opinion pieces, I like, every time a Chinese send a submarine, we won't have a government. Which is true, which has become very critical.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, so now the reply should have been, we work on some structures between the two governments, and this is a much more sort of a in-depth reply where you have some structures to play. Like, these are our understanding, both countries, on any submarine that comes to Sri Lanka. And not that you take the phone and make a call. And what do you do? Because I remember one time when the Prime Minister was here, Indian Prime Minister, there was a submarine was going to come, and we didn't give. So the President at that time said, no, it's impossible. And just imagine the timing. So when the Prime Minister is here, and then there's a Chinese request saying that, can you approve it? I said, the timing is so important. Just imagine,
And of course the Chinese did that on purpose.
They made it like it's like a routine thing.
Yeah.
And it was passing Sri Lanka.
So I'm guessing they wanted to create a bit of a stir internally.
So that's right. So that's where the EU made. So he made the right decision. Of course, you can't have a Chinese submarine.
While the Prime Minister said that. Oh yeah.
So that shows that's a very clear example of how important Sri Lanka is, and on the strategic calculations.
But Asanga, if India's whole neighborhood first policy, and the fact that they think that it's enough just to have communications with the president, they don't want to build an institutional structure. What is that for neighborhood first policy? India will never at that rate get out of this region and become the global power they want to be.
Yeah, that's the thing. So that strategic depth has to come to India also. Dr. Jayashankar's father is K. Subramaniam. Now, he was the one who introduced geopolitics to India. You see, so I was extremely happy when Dr. Jayashankar came into that project. But more than the South Bloc is doing a better job. I would say much. I would say a job that is required for the region is doing, but there are limitations also that from the defense side, the security side, which, like, for example, the MOU that was signed. So that was not from the MEA, the South Bloc. It came from the defense side.
Right.
So there is strategic calculations going on there, but I don't know whether those institutions speak to each other.
Right.
They have those structures to do that. And it's very strange because, you see, one clear example I can give you is the 2 weeks before the Easter Sunday bombing, we had the Secretary of Defense of India. on a very high level meeting. So I have included the picture here, where I'm also seated. So we are talking about India, Sri Lanka security issues, any security issue that threaten our people. So we spoke about fishing boats, we spoke about other ordinary, but nothing on this. But two people, one or two people in that table knew they had prior communications with there was a threat from extremism.
So
They were seated, but it was not on the agenda.
So they had communications with RAW.
Yeah, so so that's why. So there was a person in that meeting who knew about the extremist threat.
Right.
Or the threat was coming into Sri Lanka.
Okay.
But we never discussed it. We spoke about the fishing boats and the other stuff. So that's why it's not. Just imagine if we discussed it.
But I'm very confused, Asanga. Don't they prioritize? Don't they prioritize what is of significant threat, what is not, and then timeline it?
What I'm saying is like someone took it off the agenda. So I mean, clearly that was not on the agenda. So that's the danger. I mean, that's the issue is. That's what I'm asking in my book. I mean, if you're talking about security issues to our own people, and two people are talking something else, and then you have the others talking about the whole table about MRCC. We talked about maritime rescue coordination centers. We spoke about. I mean, that was the highest agenda, bilateral agenda that we had between two defense secretaries, and so that shows that we have gaps, right? We have large gaps to fill. So that's why you don't get those structures right. So one incident I mentioned that how the US was so angry because they were not informed.
Right.
So this was communicated to me by the Indians saying that they were really, really angry.
I can imagine.
Yeah, because the US citizens died.
Yeah.
Because had it gone to them, it wouldn't have happened. That would have been. Might not. Might have.
You don't think so?
No, because they have better structures to communicate.
But that's dependent on the Sri Lankans actually acting on that intelligence.
They will make sure that something would
You feel so?
Yeah, because what happened was I wrote something in 2019 January. I was not aware of that. I was seated at that meeting. I was not aware. The judge asked me on the Easter Sunday commission, had you seen this? What you have written like some time back? Of course, I said yes. It would tally with what it would match. So it's a serious concern. So it was not. I mean, that was quite sad. So you don't have those proper communication methods, the structures, what the researchers, national security think tanks should work on national security threats to the country. Had we known like little bit of it, like okay, there was something like this, and there could be a possibility. I mean, obviously, we would have made a serious alarm. I mean, at least. So that's why. So I think you need those structures in play. You don't want to hear. I mean, we have to be more proactive in our sort of methods. I think not reactively, sort of saying. Now, even now, for the Middle East war, right? Do we have a plan, A, B, C? What are we going to do? Is there sort of
that's what I want to ask you. Do you think they've kind of scenario developed this?
So the scenarios, I mean, Millennium Project where I work, we work on scenarios. We work on work plans, tech plans. I have one of these documents which I want to show you. This is a 2050 work plan. You see,
work technology 2050. Oh, wow.
So we're talking about 2050. So you see, Millennium Project where we work, it was established by the UN university. So we talk about forecasting, like what's going to happen to workforce from technology and the AI and the AGI. So one of the recent books we published was on AGI and the impact to individuals and all that, authored by Jerome Glenn. So these are areas on scenario plannings, and these are the scenarios that will come. So in Sri Lanka, do we have a contingency plan right now?
Yeah.
If it spreads to become the third world war, we don't know.
Yeah.
So do we have a plan? What are the areas we should be focusing on? The 14,000 the Brahman Iladari, do they have a role to
Yeah.
play? They do have a role
They
to
do
play.
have
It's a
a role,
huge role to play. So should we wait for the problem to happen?
to happen, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people who can contribute, right? I mean, I don't understand. So that's why you have to, rather than being very reactive, so try to sort of strategize, work on those areas. Yeah.
Why do you think that they don't, Asanga? Because I mean, if the goal is to stay in power for as long as possible, then doing this is the most fundamental way to ensure that survivability, is it not?
No, every regime has that, right, in the world. So you want to, the most important thing is about winning the next election, right? So
Yep.
you focus 4 years or 5 years. But that's why I said about the United States, the difference is that 2050 report will also come out. You see, I mean, just imagine the capacity. So that's why you need a longer term policy directive, consistent policy directives. So that has to come from the society also. It's not only the government, but the government needs to be sort of told, like, okay, why don't you had, so the planning committee is the best example. So why don't you bring it? Why don't you plan long term? And, sort of have I mean, rather than sort of like look at the infrastructure projects, like the port city and all that. What is the plan exactly? Is there a proper plan? Now there's a new commission and all. I did speak with the chairman. I think he stepped down. I'm not sure whether he's
Of Port
still-
City?
Yeah, so I'm not sure whether he's still chairman. But what he said was that my question was that, okay, I went to Cambodia. I saw the same thing. I saw very similar, like Port City. It's called Sihanoukville. It's fully functioning. There's not a single space. There are no empty spaces. So it's fine. When I asked the Cambodians, they said like, so you must have upsetted the Chinese. That's why your thing is kind of like that. But when I asked from Ali Sabri, he said, yes, that's a good point because Xi Jinping came and inaugurated it. And then you stopped and investigated it for corruption. I mean, the port city was stopped and then they started an investigation.
Into the Port City deal?
Yeah, deal or whatever. So at that one particular regime of, I think, Vikram Singh and Sirisena,
Right.
they paused it. And so,
Sure.
so according to Ali Sabri, what he says is that could be the reason you've upset it. But what is the actual reasons? And I went and spoke to the chairman of the port city, and then, so he was saying that, we must have, because Sihanoukville is manufacturing service, is not service sector oriented.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I was like, did we get it wrong? I mean, is it the reason that still that no investments have come in?
Right.
I said no. So they believe that they have taken the right decision, but I think we need to sort of find our own solutions. See, we wait for solutions. That's also another problem that I see. We think that somebody else would come and solve our problems.
Right. I mean, I think a great example, I heard the minister saying recently, if we run out of diesel, we'll get some from India. And that was their plan. I mean, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, so that's why the contingency plan is important. How do we over-depend also from other countries?
Sure.
We want, for IMF, right? So now I've been a technical advisor to IMF. So, I mean, of course, IMF comes as the lender of last resort. They come into countries, they do lend. But every time we get get some money from the IMF and all that, we kind of, we're happy and we shouldn't be in a celebratory mode, but we need to sort of move out of the loans,
Sure,
large
of course.
loans, and we need to find our own growth patterns and, what are the areas we need to find growth, manufacturing, are we going to depend on the traditional, have we sort of looked at new export baskets, diversifying it. We're talking about, if you look at Southeast Asia, it's about supply chains, rerouting, it's a different ballgame. All that is a very competitive, we are a trading hub, right? Sri Lanka is a natural trading hub, which we are blessed with the ports. I think we haven't got that industrial, whatever the policies, right?
Sure.
We have to be very clear on subsequent governments. They fail, right?
Yeah, sure. All of
clearly.
the incentives are all upside down.
Yeah, ups and downs. So they're both saying that if we had one continuously, then there was a disruption always. But I think it's time that Sri Lankans get into that stage. I think it's a right time also with people's uprising, all that. We've gone through a lot as a nation. And when I saw those headlines, I was extremely sad too. I mean, when I read it, like Sri Lanka's bankrupt, right? So as a Sri Lankan reading it from Washington, say, what have we done? I mean, what have we done so bad? Like, overborrowed, we paid interest on 6.9%, 6.8%, so high. When Cambodian told me that we make sure that, we won't get into trouble like you guys, because you guys gave us a good lesson.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been documented too in
Wow.
the book. So
good to know where of help.
yeah. So there you go. So I think, so they'll read Sri Lanka case quite closely.
Quite close.
I mean, they do have a strategic community who's reading those cases.
Right.
So where is our guys reading them?
Cases, yeah.
You see, you need to read about the region as a trading hub. If you want to, we talk as a hub. Every politician come and say we are a hub.
Yeah.
But we don't know how to promote it as a hub or,
add value to it.
Yeah, our kings have done a better job, I believe. If you look at it back in the past. So then one of the arguments was with the historian, archaeologist, saying our king is basically he's saying the Sri Lankan king, that's not a Sri Lankan king, he's a Cambodian king. Yeah, that's Nisankamalla.
Okay.
Back in the ancient past, because he had a street called Kamboja Vasala right in front of his palace. So he said that's the evidence they have to show that he is.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we kind of intermarried, but there was a lot of intermarriages during, and there was a lot of references by Dr. Hema Gunatekar. She had done a lot of research on that area.
This is during what, the 12th, 13th century?
So this is the peak of the Angkor Empire, the 12th Jayavarman during the 8th Jayavarman, 7th Jayavarman.
Right.
So that's why. So they know the country so well. That's why it's like our research has been kind of limited by these. I mean, Hema has done a great research, but then who has done after Hema? This is many, many years ago.
Right.
So we can establish those relations. We already have it. I mean, with the Siam, the Thailand, they told me like when we lost Buddhism, you brought us Buddhism back.
Right.
We have amazing respect for that.
Right. Interesting.
And so like that, I mean, Myanmar clearly has. So ASEAN story is also very interesting. So Sri Lanka, if you look at it, even in the Second World War, we were seen as the headquarters of the Southeast Asia was in Kandy.
Okay.
So Sri Lanka was in both regions actually, playing a role
West
for
and
South and South and Southeast Asia.
Okay.
And so I think both regions we can play a bigger role because shorter connections, well positioned.
So what are we missing? Ambition, vision?
Yeah, I think vision, like Narasimha Rao had a vision, 1990s, he wrote something called the Lukis policy, right? Amazingly, I mean, he did it by himself. He articulated that vision and said, India needs a Lukis policy to look at the East Asian market, every market we capture in the world. So that was the LEP. When I asked that, after writing that particular chapter on the regional diplomacy and the LEP, I was wondering, where is our LEP? We never had a Lukis policy. Do we have a policy document? No. So then I asked from the foreign minister. I met the foreign minister a few months ago, the present foreign minister, 3-4 months ago. So I asked him, why don't we have a Lukis policy? And he agreed. Then he agreed that the growth of Vietnam was amazing. He's been to Vietnam. He's seen that. He agrees that it's LEP, but who's going to write it? Well, you see, somebody is right. That strategic community there inside the foreign ministry needs to, write that as well as presently work on it.
So why do they not? Are they just? I get like a lot of friends
No,
say
you need
they're
the
lazy.
vision. You need the vision. Really, listen, Narasimha Rao did that, right? So you need the leadership from the top. I mean, people won't just write it. I mean, it comes from the research desk. Even if it comes from the research desk, the visionary politicians need to take that forward.
Sure.
You see, I can talk about Indian Ocean Zone for peace
Yeah.
in my research department.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And it
the
stays
leader-
there forever. Yeah.
So what Sirimavo did was carrying what the Shirley Amarasinghe was talking about, right? So she not carried to the UN and also declared in 1973.
Yeah.
So that shows that that's leadership, that's visionary leadership taking to the next level, as well as getting all the other countries to agree. So I think if Sri Lanka has a LEP really soon, it will help the president.
Okay.
Because it helps the president to diversify our markets, get more. I mean, he wants what he wants is, investments, right? He's been asking for investment, but then how do you? I mean, look at even the last statement that he said, "I have only fuel for 27 days," and so right now you are in a crisis situation.
Yeah.
That means anybody who reads that news,
Yeah, it's going to look at that as a crisis. Yeah.
yeah, so it's going to be quite difficult. It's a very difficult time. If the war continues, we are looking at a country that is kind of stabilizing slowly. You're looking at a.
If you could scenario develop in your head right now, in 3 best, worst, mid-case scenario for Sri Lanka within the next 12, 24 months, where do you see this going?
Well, if I could, you look at the best case scenario, I would say is that president to look at, like I said, building that strategic community or the thinking, giving a priority to that, setting up the planning committee, and those things are important. Bring the academics in, getting those inputs. That's the priority, because when you read this clearly, you will understand that the presidents are blaming others, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's blaming others. Then who has done this problem?
Exactly.
Unless then you have to say that the entire world is controlled by different organizations from outside.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's like a huge. I think so. That's the best case scenario. Setting up that strategic community, thinking, regardless of political parties. You see, there's another issue in Sri Lanka. So one of the advantages in the US is that you have people from all over. Now my boss is a Democrat, a hardline Democrat.
Really?
Yeah. So you can imagine, right? The office is like quite interesting. And so that doesn't mean that, you see, these reports come out for a national purpose.
Yeah.
And what the US, the beauty of that system is that it's a very short presidency. Right? And people don't realize it's gone. Then you have the next guy taking the baton. And so I think it's important to understand, put aside political differences. It's a small country, a very small country when you compare to the countries that have traveled, size of Cuba, I believe. But then even the former presidents don't get together, right?
Yeah.
One of the suggestions I had was, why don't they meet for tea? All of them, the former 4 or 5 of them. No, they can just talk for 1 hour something, and at least about external issues they had.
They'll all have something in common.
No, the present president can just listen. Kind of. Yeah, in the US you have that moments. You have former presidents, meeting each other, advising. And most of the former presidents have institutions or something affiliated. They're taking.
Sure, they go into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's required. That unity is required, because what I see is he is also quite polarized. If you look at it, a lot of people are saying right now they're not talking about the stability of the government. They're saying, okay, everything is high. This is high. This is it. So they no, this is not what we expected. What do you want? Then they don't have a solution also.
Yeah.
So even in Philippines, I asked this question: you want to get rid of Marcos? Who do you want?
Yeah.
And I said,
we don't know.
We're not sure. They go, would you like the daughter Duterte?
Right.
Yeah, do you like it? And they said, no. We didn't say that. You see, the alternative is also they don't know. So I think it's time that you stabilize the country. You work. So I would say, bringing. Sort of, creating all parties sort of consensus. It's difficult. It's difficult because it requires political. I believe the president has that. He has a capacity to sort of communicate really well. He's a very good communicator. So I think he can bring in these parties, and and he has to be visionary, of course. drive
Yep.
drive the policies that he has, and not be a passive. Obviously, be an active, right? What I mentioned, when we spoke about that, how to be an active foreign policy rather than being passive.
Passive.
Yeah.
So are you in an optimistic place in your head?
Of course, always optimistic. I always try to place myself in an optimistic position in terms of all scenarios. But when it comes to Sri Lankan case, yes, I'm very optimistic because we had a bad time. We had a really bad fall. I mean, 22, a lot of people suffered in the country. So now we have come out of it very optimistic. So I think we need more people to help the government strengthen the position, but the government also has to open up, right, and sort of listen to what's going on. It can quickly drift to, my fear is that it can quickly drift on the geopolitical because of the pressure as well as, if you miscalculate it, you get drifted very fast.
When you say drift, you mean they get bogged down in it?
Yeah, they get entangled, right?
They get entangled.
They get entangled and they don't know how to sort of balance it out,
right?
So what happens is every president in the past, I mean, two of them I have analyzed, they start with talking really good about India. They praise India so much for the first 2 years. Then they hate India when they go out. When they depart, they're like, if you even speak now to them. So how does that even happen? They even dress like, I remember Sri Lankans, the people were cheering for one president, and then he used to dress like Modi. And so where are they even now? I mean, so this is the thing. So the ones who are, this is a country that you'd have to understand there is a bit of complexity there too, because the hardliners and ultra-nationalists brings sometimes I would say not a conducive or realistic perspective.
They add to the trust deficit that you spoke about.
And we have enough of people, I mean the ones who create that, propagate the ultra-nationalist sentiments quickly, and then created. I mean, India Out campaigns were created like that. We found there were, if you look at the entire region, I mean, there are two sides of the story. So you have to, as a researcher, you always have to go on what's based on the ground. I always tell my researchers, capture the data, find out what's going on. At one point, we captured in my previous book, the trade unions, one of the leaders. So they were saying that the reason we're on strike, they're on strike on it was an Indian terminal operation that was during Gotabe's time, so they were trying to give it to an Indian operator.
At the Colombo Harbour, right? Yeah. So was it the West Terminal Port or I forget.
I think it is the South or the West. So anyway, so the trade unions was against and the whole port, and they were making a huge demonstration. So it was very interesting. So the interview we captured, he said that we are against because of geopolitics. And I said, hold on, there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with the data point, because trade unions don't talk geopolitics.
Geopolitics, yeah.
They don't. That means somebody's paid
them. Of course. I don't think they would have even...
They talk about wages, right? Trade unions talk about wages. Or, this is about geopolitics. That means that some other country is taking over and that sort of thing. And that's why they're against it. Yeah. So but interestingly, when we captured that data, Dr. Jaishankar came few weeks after that incident and he mentioned that.
Okay.
He said somebody's behind it.
Okay.
So what we captured was correct. Right. I mean, obviously, so that was propagated. There were, I mean, so easily it can be propagated. So that's why there are incidents that I can see. They're trying to sort of, create some situation, like be the coal tender, or if there's corruption, let's be transparent. And I mean, corruption is been in the society. So president is making an effort to make things independent, to find out, to make things better, right? So I mean, if you look at the IMF, we're going on the same diagnostics, recommendations, trying to make that country better. But will it be better off if the others take over?
Right.
So that's what the people need to think.
It's the alternatives, yeah.
Yeah, so the alternative, is it better? Or is going to be more corruption on the coal? I mean, so that's something that we need to think. And so and President can be always transparent, which is something that he has been doing it, which is really good.
Okay. Interesting. I'm glad that you have an optimistic viewpoint. But I personally, I wouldn't say I'm a skeptical or a cynic, but it's certainly very hard to imagine that with weak institutions, with individual players constantly changing, I think external powers, civilizational powers like China, India, and even the great power, the US, they just make use of it. They take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear. I mean, even Vietnam, they told me about. I mean, there were moments in history. They had, for example, the orange gas issue. So I have a picture of that. But then they had the guillotine. French came and decapitated there, and so there's a small guillotine in display. But when I was interviewing them, and I said, "Why did you show me this?" I mean, I said, "No, because we're great friends now. We want to work with them."
Okay.
So they've been very pragmatic.
Right.
But they have not taken out of their museums.
Interesting.
You see, what we try to do is we try to kind of hide also.
Yeah.
And then we try to say that those things, I mean, okay, colonial period or whatever, We don't even have a war museum, right? I mean, we had a war for 3 decades.
And we don't have one, yeah.
Can one of our kids, like I have young kids, right? So you go there, can they learn about the war and the atrocities? Where do they begin? Now, their grandfather was killed by an assassination, right, by LTT. Then they asked me, like, why was he killed? I mean, they were young, so they said it was a bomb blast, a suicide bomb, and he was a politician at that time. So, but to understand the story, what happened to all these people, we had a 3-decade war. There should be, like, in South Africa, you have apartheid museum, you have war museums. So where I went to learn about this orange gas and all is the Hanoi Museum of War. So where is our museum?
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Yeah, so one of our researchers actually put out this idea back when I was at Kadirgamar director. We should have a museum to show that, it was a very great idea. I supported it. We should have pictures also, both sides, what had happened. I mean, we know about the burning of the library, we know about all these things. So where are the pictures? Why can't we show a picture and talk about it? So this was during the Rajapaksa time, right? So it would have been difficult at that time. And it's a war-winning president.
Yeah.
But right now, we're in a position to understand, learn. There are many historians, there are many scholars who can talk and narrate the story. Just for us to show, like, once you go into that museum and sort of understand the historical perspective, why we got into the trouble. So now, easiest blame is that, okay, India created it, and so that's what the ultranational is, right?
Yeah.
They created it, they gave it to us, so, no, it's not that. It's not that.
It's a lot more nuanced and complex.
To it. And, I mean, they didn't go and burn the library.
Fair.
Yeah, so that's right. So, as well as the stages, how it evolved, and who were the actors.
Their incentives.
And what did they... You don't even know. I mean, people will forget. Like, people like Neil and Tiruchalan, what they did for the peace efforts. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things. I mean, they paid the ultimate price of, one of the brilliant Harvard scholars, and he died, right? So, and his institute has those documents. You can bring those documents and sort of, show it. And so we have the resources. It's not that we don't have the resources, we have the people also.
Right.
Just that the president needs to take those initiatives, leadership, and show, like, this is what happened. We are not going to, and of course, his own party had 2 insurrections, right? 1971, then 89, I mean, JVP.
JVP, yeah.
So there was reasons. They talk, I see in their political programs, they talk about it. what are the reasons and all that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that they show also that, narrate it properly. Well, understand the risk factors. I mean, geopolitical risk is common to everybody. I mean, geopolitics affects your kitchen, your gas prices, your fuel. Now everybody knows that how important geopolitical subject is. So calculating risk is really important. Corporates will calculate risk. For example, I've done a risk assessment for Japanese corporation, Mitsubishi. Different companies take geopolitics very seriously. Governments need to do it too. I mean, so here what I find is that the gap or the limit is that the government is not doing that really well. The risk calculation for geopolitics. That would be more proactive than reactive. So that's for young people. There's a lot of research material out there that they can benefit from, and also institutions like the Millennium Project, and there's methodology. There's so much of literature which we publish. So unfortunately, they're not connected that much to Sri Lankan. But I see a lot of Indian young researchers are connected and sort of benefiting, but not the Sri Lankan. Nepalese are also same, the Bangladesh. But as a regional director, that's how I see it.
Okay.
But they can benefit, and they can visit our sites, as well as whatever the things that they come across, the data points and something that they are working on. Because all these work that I've done, like the 4 chapters, some of the research is not complete. So I leave it to the younger researchers to take it forward. All my books are like that. So this is the 3rd or the trilogy. And there are some researchers who have done really well on certain areas. So it's I leave it to them, and I'm very happy to sort of guide them as well as help them.
Perfect. So actually, this book we've barely covered. I don't think we've even covered 30% of what's in the book, to be honest, in depth. And that's how much rigor has gone into the research. So thank you for coming, and I hope to speak to you about this again when World War III breaks out.
Thank you so much.
Asanga.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.